Yo, 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 yo. Welcome back to another amazing edition of the Best Practices Show. You ever thought to yourself, I got to start watching some numbers, but how do I know that these numbers actually turn into dollars or anything beneficial for our practice? Well, today, we're going to answer that question. We're going to show you the numbers that turn into dollars in your dental practice and how to master data in your dental practice. It's going to be pretty simple. We recently did a webinar and it was fantastic of the numbers you should be watching with your team and countermeasures to each one of the numbers. Meaning, when you don't hit the numbers, here are some things you can do. It is awesome. So please listen to this. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you soon.
Well, welcome us in here, Kirk. We are talking about turning the numbers into dollars, data mastery in your practice. Why do we need to know this stuff?
Yeah, and I'll probably start here. If you're new here, welcome. For those of you that have been here before, this is a passion of ours. Actually, it's not our job, it's a calling. I love this profession. We're coaches, and so we coach dental practices all over the country. Most of the practices we coach are not broken. They're actually really good practices, but they're stuck and they don't know how to make it better. And they're working really, really hard. And we love this stuff. So we roll up our sleeves, get deep into the data, really learn a lot about practice culture and systems. And we're going to decode a lot of the challenges. In this particular webinar, we're going to be talking about turning the numbers into dollars. Data mastery in your practice. Now, it's not always about money, but if you tweak these things, you'll see profitability will greatly improve, as well as culture and how you feel. So I want you to follow along, and we'll share a couple other opportunities you can learn more. Here, if you registered for the webinar, you're going to see on the screen, we've got a golden ticket. Now, this is one of the most favorite cool things we've ever done. We created a study club many years ago, and it was called Inner Circle. It has now morphed into To the Top Study Club, where we bring some of the best thinkers, practice owners anywhere in the country. A lot of them are clients of ours. Some of them are just part of the To the Top Study Club. But you can join, and you can kick the tires. The cool thing about the golden ticket is we do it twice a quarter. And our next one will be in the third week of April, and you have a golden ticket. We love it so much. We're so proud of it that we want you to come and come for free. Come be our guest. We'll feed you, give you all the information. It'll be overwhelming because it's a lot of information, but you can kick the tires and try it for free. If you love it, you could stay if you want. If you don't have to stay. Just come check it out. We believe in it so much. It's 8 to 3. It's on a Friday. I promise you, you will be motivated. And you can redeem the ticket by talking with Gina on our team, Gina, and she'll help you and make you feel real welcomed here.
We have this mountain.
Go ahead.
We have this mountain. We want to tell you, those of you that are new to ACT, there's a couple different ways you can engage with us, and we're glad you're here in our webinar. And Kirk, you tell the analogy of the mountain without a top and just where this all kind of came from, because I really like it and it really applies to life. So I'd love you to quick tell that story.
Yeah, the story really comes from my illnesses, which is I don't know, this is the way God created me. I always like to think of how I can make things better. I do think it's part of why you're here on the webinar. You're always thinking about how you can make your practice, your family, your life a little bit better. And I believe in life, we just climb this mountain that doesn't have a top. I don't know that you ever get there. And as you climb this mountain, you can look back and see the progress that you've made. And that's why a lot of what we do is thematic towards that. It's about, because here's the truth of it. it's really easy to get better when you're not good at something. Like when you get started, you make a couple improvements, you're like, wow, that really worked. But the better you get, the harder it is to get better. And we created this framework where you can do it in 3 different ways. There's 3 different things we do. You can do it on your own, which is the Best Practices Association. That's the BPA that we created, where all of this information will be in the communities there. Then you can also do it in a group, which is the 2 to the Top Study Club. So if you just want to come hang out and be part of a great group that'll support you, you can do that. Or we can help you do it, which is one-on-one coaching. You're a dentist. It's a lot to do. If you have a team around you, it's too hard to think about any of these things. And that's what we do. And so you can take this journey on your own, however you want. And you can join us inside the BPA community where we put all of this information. There's hundreds and hundreds of hours back there. So check it out. Anything you would add, Barrett?
I mean, all the tools we're sharing with you, with the attendees today, it's all already in the BPA, and there's hundreds more where that came from. So it's super cheap. Come on in. We'd love to have you. We are moving down this path of better practice, better life. And we're going to talk a lot about money today, but really, like Kirk said, we don't care how much money you make, as long as your profitability allows you this life and practice that you envision. That's really what we're after. And so if that speaks to you, that message, just come and join us, bpa.com. We'd love to have you.
Yeah. We also have an app, so you can take it on the go and just have it at your fingertips all the time. So
and all these webinars live there. All your podcasts live there. All our master classes live there. You and I come live every other week and answer questions. So it's a really engaging community. But let's get to the heart of the matter. So lead us off with what we're talking about today, Kirk, and why it's important.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a couple KPIs and countermeasures. And I'll explain what countermeasures are more here in a little bit. But a lot of times people don't know what to measure. They don't know what to look at. And if you look at the 3 KPIs that we're going to take you through today, they're hugely impactful in your practice. And when they're not right, we're going to show you what you can do to improve them or make adjustments along the way instead of waiting till the end of the month and going, that's not good. So these are going to be 3 really high leverage points within your practice. You can get everybody involved in these too. And so we created a download, and it's in the chat, and I'll add that again here in just a second.
We'll add it in the chat, and it will be emailed to you in the next day.
Totally.
So
cool.
So tell me how fast you want me to go here, Kirk.
Well, you advance the slides and go ahead and so you're kind of in charge, because I'll take us off the rails. This will be a 3-hour webinar.
I'll keep us on track, and you're gonna input as much as humanly possible. So we're gonna walk you through 3 key metrics. There's so many more. And actually, those of you that are in our community have been listening. We've been talking a lot about the financial gaps, and it's a whole method from gross production all the way to, of that gross production, how many dollars and cents are you actually putting in your personal checking account after taxes each month? We're going to walk you through that whole method. It's going to take a full day in August, Friday, August 23rd, here in Milwaukee at our education center. Kirk and I are going to walk you through it. I promise, I almost don't guarantee anything, but I can guarantee those of you that come to that, you will know more about your business and how a small business works after that day than you ever did before. It's amazing. It's making a lot of impact in people's lives. And again, we want you to be profitable so that your life and your practice are amazing. And so of that production, you will know after this day here in August, how much of my production do I actually get to put in the bank? And we're going to walk you through that. The metrics we're going to talk about today are 3 big ones, 3 parts of that method. But we invite you all to come. You can register for this on our website. Go to events and save a seat, because it is filling up fast already, but August 23rd. Why this is important, to drive change, we got to know where we're at. And numbers tell us that. Kirk, you always say data is unemotional. And quite often, dentists, we set goals and we lead and we react based on feelings. I feel like I am not busy enough. I feel like I should be making more money. I feel like we have cancellations. I feel. And when we make decisions on feelings, quite often we're making the wrong decision. And so data, while sometimes it can be difficult to track and difficult to analyze, data tells us the true story so we can make educated business decisions.
Yeah, and can I just add to that, because
Please.
on the downside of it, when you don't have any data, you're talking to yourself, you're telling yourself a story, and it's very frustrating and it's very overwhelming. You talk about burnout a lot. People that are burned out, I can't, we're not burnout experts, but when you talk to them, they don't know what's up and down. It's just all overwhelming. And that's the truth of not having any data. On the other side of it, when you have a lot of data and you go, wow, that's pretty healthy, you actually sleep pretty well. You go, I'm not worried about it as much as I used to be, because we're on the right track. And what allows you to be able to sleep at night, think better, relax, breathe is, no, we're on track. We're doing good.
Mm-hmm. So the first, and we talked about this already again, that's that day in August. So we talked about the emotions. We talked about why the need to analyze hard data. So data point number one, we're going to talk about three big ones, and then there's some subsets and conversations we'll have about each one. But data point number one is net production. And I'll just say this. Notice we didn't start with gross production. And that's going to deviate from just about every other financial dental lecture you're ever going to hear. And in our GAPS method, we actually, net production is way better than gross production in terms of analyzing your practice. But I'll say this, net production isn't even the best metric. Probably the best number one starting metric is the gap between your gross production and your net production. And let me explain. Net production is your collectible amount. It is your production after adjustments, after write-offs, after insurance write-offs, membership plan write-offs, and elective write-offs. So net production is a very important number because that's the maximum potential of revenue that your practice can collect. If we just look at gross production, what we're missing is the percentage of that cannot be collected. So we are seeing, we talk a lot about in-network, out-of-network, PPOs. We are seeing the national average of practices that are heavily in-network are writing off over 40% of their gross production. Okay, so you can imagine if I produce $1 million of dentistry, but I'm writing off 40% of that, 600,000 is my net production. I need to know that because I have to know that 600,000 is my maximum collections, but I need to know that there's a $400,000 gap there. Okay. We call it the effort gap. And we call it the effort gap because that production that you can't collect on due to write-offs, that took effort. And we don't want to minimize and throw that out. That took time, that took energy, that took money, that took blood, sweat, and tears. So there's effort that was spent and given in order for a gross production. Then we have all these write-offs and then net production. Kirk, layer onto that, please.
Yeah. So this week alone, just in a bunch of conversations I had with people actually all over the world, they're talking about big challenges in different countries about in dentistry. And basically it's pointing back to pretty much two things. Number one is this stress of dentistry and burnout and the lack of profitability, which is tough. And then the second one is finding great team members. And the debate was, costs are tough. Team members are the biggest expense. I'm like, well, I get that. But, what really is the biggest expense is you're not collecting half of the money anyway. So that impacts your costs overall. So I think it's really good when you take a look at all these numbers. The cool thing about what we're going to take you through is you can diagnose where a lot of this subjective pain is coming from. It's going to be really objective. You'll understand why you feel the way you do. So knowing these numbers is critical. And I will tell you right now, this game of knowing exactly what you're gross producing and net collecting is going to get harder and more complex. I mean, this is all we do. And our job with these webinars and everything we do is to give you more information to help you decode it.
Yeah. So let's just quickly, we'll circle back on the net production and wrap this in a bow. So we produce dentistry. We produce gross production. It's our true output. It is our, if we bill out everything to the maximum, that's our gross production. But then we have insurance write-offs and adjustments, okay? And we have elective adjustments and write-offs when we do charitable care, elective care, guaranteed service. And we have sometimes membership plan discounts. We love membership plans, but there is a discount that we have to apply by. Sometimes we have collections write-offs where we can't collect money. All of that comes off of the gross production and leaves you with net production or your collectible amount. So we all know what it's like to go to a CE course, and we're sitting with other dentists and we all say, well, I produce this and I produce this and I produce that. That's actually not a metric of your business, because if you produce $1 million but write off 40%, you're actually a $600,000 business, because any banker is going to say, I don't care how much you produce, I care how much you collect. So actually, net production, you're not even a $600,000 practice, because I need to know how much you collect, and which we're going to get to. Okay.
Yeah. Now
we
here,
talked
let's,
about, keep going.
let's do this. Let me share screen just for, because, in all fairness, just to let you guys know, I'm the slide guy, which isn't fair to Barrett because I spend a lot of my time making things look pretty. And so a couple things you'll notice just in the handout that I put in here, and it's just good to know, is that we've given you a little the definitions. We're big fans of Dental Intel. So Dental Intel does a great job of gross and net production. The other thing that we won't go into today, but how you handle adjustments will greatly impact your data. There's a couple ways you can do it. Adjustments can be accounted for the day of the adjustment. They can also be accounted for the day of the procedure, and then they can also be done on a 90-day average. We like to look at averages a little bit more because it tells us the ups and downs. Now, we don't need to get into this, but I get these questions all the time. Well, are you adjusting on the date or the procedure? No, we're going to look at kind of a 90-day average, because that'll tell us what's going on. And so if you want more information, how that all works. And then also, just one last thing I put in here, Open Dental, all of the softwares are great, but all of them have a little bit different nuance to how they do it. And so we just put that in there, that if you're struggling with the details, I love all this stuff. I geek out on it big time. So, but for our purposes, we're just going to talk about the actual net production and what happens when it's not. And so in this, there's 3 types of write-offs. Barrett, you mentioned that, and elective write-offs. Talk about elective write-offs just a little bit more, because there's a lot of confusion around that one too.
Yeah, elective write-offs are all those write-offs that are true and good and valid, but they're not contractually obligated. So an insurance PPO contract is a contract we signed, and so we're contractually obligated for those write-offs. Elective write-offs are almost everything else. It is guaranteed service. It is pro bono. It is charitable. It is senior citizen. It's when you do veneers on your mom, you write that off. So those are elective. I choose these, and many of them are good, and we're not going to encourage you to stop any of them, other than to track them accordingly. So you know, I did X amount of pro bono. I did Y amount of guaranteed service. I gave away X to my family and friends. All that is important, but they all are lumped under the general heading of elective.
Yeah. And one of the things that you'll see is we've covered the PPO roadmap. We're improving it all the time. And if you really want to get your arms around what your write-offs are, I'm a big fan of categorizing as many of them as you possibly can, so that you can really diagnose where they're all coming from instead of putting them all in just 1 or 2 big buckets. And so we do have a handoff called the PPO roadmap. I'm going to add it to the feed. Please use it, because it shows you step by step by step how to move away from PPOs if that's what you want to do. So you can do all of that. The other countermeasure is you could assess.
Hold on, go back to countermeasure 1 real quick. Just one more thing on that. So 1, PPO roadmap. Kirk and I are going step by step through the PPO roadmap. We just started. For BPA members, we go BPA live. With our next one is April 30th. And then we're going to do every 2 weeks. We're going to come and do step by step by step through the PPO roadmap. So if that is something that you want to study more and learn more about, just join the BPA and you'll get all the links. One of the take-home messages I want people to know, like I can do this on Monday, is to look at if you're in network with more than one insurance. I want you to think about this. I don't want you to lump all insurance write-offs under the same heading, insurance write-off. I want you to categorize them. I want it to be Delta, Blue Cross, MetLife, all the names. You're going to do the same process, but you're going to choose the actual insurance instead of just insurance. And the reason is they're not all the same. You write off different amounts for each. And it's just nice information to have to say, of all my adjustments and write-offs in my effort gap, this percent went to this insurance, this percent went to that insurance, etc. And the second thing, one of the main points we're going to guide in August when we work through the whole method is that you will only appreciate your insurance write-offs if you bill your ledger the right way. And we're not going to spend too much time on this, but it means that if you charge $1,000 for a crown, but you have to bill $1,000, even if you're contractually obligated to write off 25% of that. So even if in network, you're going to say $1,000, XYZ insurance write-off $300, then patient's going to pay half of the remaining $700. Insurance is going to pay half. That's how we want to see your ledger. That's the only way you're going to know the full story that is your effort gap. And in August, we're going to really work you detailed through how to do just that. But take-home message on Monday, bill your full fee and write off per insurance company. You just have to go into your software and make different write-off categorizations. You'll know so much more.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. Do exactly what Barrett said. And even if you don't charge a fee, put it in the computer. You know, that's a big one. Like, I'm not putting this in the computer. It's my friend from high school or my wife or whatever. You put it all in there because it keeps track of your activity and we can see the discrepancy. We can see how you utilize your time. So that's really important. Now, one of the questions Barrett's going to come up is like, okay, my net production isn't where it needs to be. So we have what are called countermeasures. And we learned this from a great coach many years ago that when something's not good, you just don't sit there and look at it. You know, if your blood sugar is off, you have to have a countermeasure. If your cholesterol is too high, you have to have a countermeasure. If you have no money, you have to have a countermeasure. If everything has to have a countermeasure, they are steps to get us back on track and in the green. So talk about what's our second countermeasure when it comes to net production.
So I'll back up for 1 second. If your net production is off, what does net production being off mean? It simply means you're not profitable. You're not at a satisfactory level. It means there's not enough collectible money potential for your business to be where you thought and felt it can and should be. Okay. So there's lots of countermeasures with net production. We talked about one is assess your write-offs. The second countermeasure is assess your schedule. So what does that mean? If we assess our schedule, this is the question. I don't have enough money. My net production, I'm feeling like it could be more. The question is, and I'm going to work 8 hours tomorrow. Many of you are going to do 8 clinical hours tomorrow. Why don't you ask the question, are my current scheduling processes giving the most opportunity possible with tomorrow's 8 hours? Meaning you're going to work you're going to give 8 hours of effort tomorrow. Are you going to get the maximum return or something less than that because of cancellations, no-shows, lack of block scheduling, just not thinking through the flow of the day, not setting up perfect day scheduling, which is one thing we attest to. So no, before we do anything drastic, like I'm going to hire another associate and buy another office and 3 more ops or hire, 3 more hygienists, are my 8 hours every day, am I getting the most out of it? And am I being efficient? Other businesses call that optimization and efficiency. Am I producing the maximum amount of widgets on my assembly line in these 8 hours? For dentists, am I getting the most out of my schedule? Now, that doesn't mean we encourage you to be a mill. It doesn't mean we encourage you not to take amazing care of your patients, but within your vision for your scope of care and the quality of care, are you being as smart as possible in your scheduling?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to see as you start to do this, I mean, the best kept secret of anyone who does anything well in dentistry is how they utilize time. And so you guys have heard us say this time is the new rich. And we have a lot of dentists that get into this and they figure they're working the average, which is 220 days a year. And they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then they get down to 180 days a year. Well, the secret is that they're utilizing their days better. It's not that they ramped up their fees. I mean, that is part of the formula, but it's a very small part of the formula. You can actually just take a regular schedule, reorganize it. And what that means is that you need to have an ideal day. Now, you're a dentist. You've heard this a million times. You've talked to your team. They still don't know what you're talking about. You have to work this, rework this, work it again. I'm 54 now. I spend a good part of every morning talking to Laura about how I control my day. What do I need to control? Like, time is not something you stop with. You work it, rework it, tweak it, and then you're going to age and you're going to be like, I don't want to do that in the afternoon anymore. So this is a constant conversation. We have a great tool and I want you to use it. What the tools allow you to do is to get aligned with, I don't care if you have 4 team members or 400. We all got to be talking the same language about how we utilize our days.
Yeah, I love this idea, and there's a big financial component of it. Scheduling to goals, scheduling to the right profitability. But more than anything, as a dentist myself, like I wanted to schedule so my mood, my effort, my time, and my energy were maximized. Right? The doctor's mood and energy is the most valuable asset in any dental practice. And when I'm doing a molar root canal at 4:30 on a Wednesday, my mood is not great. That's me. So more than any profitable, I said, I got to set up these days so I'm just not a monster by the end of the day. And so I started with like, what is my ideal for my energy so I can be most productive? I want to do all my big producing earning stuff in the morning. I want to do my inserts, my emergencies, my records exams, all the stuff that is kind of less mentally exhausting. I want to do that in the afternoon. And so when you set your days up, by the time I got to lunch, I'm like, okay, the rest of the day is going to be easy breezy because it's all quote unquote the easy stuff. Now, what that does, to give a really blatant example, there's nothing worse than going on a Tuesday in your morning, you have 3 inserts with 20 minutes between each of them. You just blew a whole morning because there wasn't a policy around when we place inserts, that we never give just a 20 or 30 minutes between free little things because you can't put anything real between that. So you might as well have not even come to work on that Tuesday morning. So that's a blatant example. I know no one really does that, but you can just start with like, what does my day look like where I'm really happy? And then compare that to, okay, now how does that work in terms of production, profitability, scheduling to goal? And now we can give our very specific instructions to our administrative team on how to schedule. Does that mean you never flex? Absolutely not. But that means 90% of the time, a quadrant of crown and filling is going to be scheduled first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
90% of the time, an insert is going to be scheduled in the afternoon. And when the patient says, why can't I do it in the morning? That's not when Dr. Straub does those procedures. It's very simple. The patients are like, oh, okay. Kirk.
Yeah. The big thing is the last bullet point, because even when you do all this work, the doctor screws it up more than anybody. So when you set the rules, the doctor can't call the audible and go, Omaha, Omaha, just totally forget what I told you a month ago. You got to stick to your blocks as much as possible. And when you do, your team will support you in that whole process. So make sure you set that up. And so that is data point number 1 and the countermeasures. Data point number 2 is obviously going to be of the net production. How much did we actually collect, which is net collections percentage? Tell us about this, Barrett.
So we talked about net production being your collectible potential. It's your maximum collectible amount. You can't collect your gross production if you wrote off 40%. Okay. So of your net production, now that's what I can collect. Well, how much did you? Okay. Of that net production, did you collect 100%, 105%, or 95%? We say of your net production, we want all our dentists collecting 100%. Now, why? Because all that blood, sweat, and tear, that effort that was already given. has already spent your time away from your family, that energy, the overhead expense was already spent. So every dollar of net production we don't collect, it doesn't come out of overhead expense, like not doing a Crown would save on a lab fee. It comes out of your pocket,
Yeah.
doctor. And that's what we'll show in our financial gaps method, that lack of collections, anything less than 100% of your net production, whatever that amount is, that came right out of your personal checking account, because it flows right down to the cash flow at the end of the day. So it's really, really important that we collect 100%. You're going to see in this example right there, this practice is collecting 105% of net. That's wonderful. Over 100% is excellent.
Yeah. Let me just piggyback on that, because if you're a dentist listening, here's the truth of what you're probably experiencing is you have Susie. Susie works at the front. Susie's been with you for 20 years. You go to church with Susie. You know
Susie
Susie's
Finelli. Is it
Susie
Susie
Fennell. Yeah,
Finelli?
yeah, yeah. Look at that. You're adding like traditional last names to all this. And so what happens is Susie's great. She's awesome. She knows all the patients. She was here when I bought the practice, and she collects 92%. And so there's a challenge with that, because you leave 8% of all dollars on the table, just because you're afraid to grow and develop Susie. Now, here's the cool part. We're a coach. We know we can grow and develop anybody to not be afraid in that role of how to communicate. Verbal skills matter, and communicating with patients is really important. And so getting caught up, and this is actually a practice that we started working with. And as you can see, they have one of our coaches. A lot of times they're at 92%. We got to get caught up. So it's not unusual for us to see, now just getting started, their net collections will be way over 100%. It's going to be 105, and then it'll even out after a while. So when you're back there, if you use Dental Intel or another analytics program, you're going to see analytics on gross and net collections. Now, both of them are important, because with the gross collections, you can see the disparity between what we grow, if you're entering gross production correctly and your full fee correctly. So that's always the question that we have. And then what was our collectible production, and what did we do? And you as a leader should make it the standard. It should always be 100%. And the best way to look at that is it on a 90-day collection percentage, because you're going to have months. Some of you took off last month. You know, you're gone for half of the month. Your office was closed for a week, and that can create an aberration in the numbers. But over 3 months, it should show you we are right on track.
Mhm. So yeah, when you have a disparity between the gross percent and the net, that means that there's write-offs. So that this practice has likely some insurance PPO participation. There's probably about a 20 to 25% write-off gap. And so that's another take home on Monday. If you are in network, even a mediocre amount, and your gross collections percent is near 100%, the process is probably incorrect, that we're not entering the true gross production. We're entering net production, which it's not, I understand. We totally understand why people do that. But what we're not knowing is how much of my energy and effort am I writing off. And we're not even saying that you shouldn't write off anything. We just want you to know what it is, so that you can make good business decisions.
Yeah. And so the question becomes, okay, listen, Barrett, what if I am that dentist or team member where we're at 92%? Well, now this requires a countermeasure. So we're not in a healthy zone. So if we're at 92%, let's get it healthy. So how do we do that? We're going to walk you through how to do it. And we're going to give you a countermeasure here. The first countermeasure is we're going to assess your financial policy. So explain that to us, Barrett.
It's, what does your practice believe about collecting money? So I don't even need to look at it at anyone's manual or systems manual, employee manual. The number one financial policy is your patients should pay their portion today.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just have to back up and say, okay, I need to buy a refrigerator. I'm going to go to Home Depot. Is Home Depot going to say, here's a refrigerator, pay us half today, and then bring in the other half whenever you can?
Wouldn't that be amazing? They would
Right.
go out of business.
And if I say, hey, but I don't have all that, they're going to say, well, we'll hold on to this refrigerator
Right.
until you do. Or you can do third-party financing. Okay. So it's just a mindset. Like, obviously we're going to take care of people in urgent care. I'm not talking about that. But people pay for what they owe you the day of. That's policy number one. So the number one countermeasure is assessing the beliefs of your practice, and most specifically you, doctor, and the person who actually collects the money. That their opinion, their life story, their perspective about money is maybe the most important factor in whether you're going to collect 100% or not.
Yeah. And so a couple things. We created a tool that's about creating a clear financial policy. I'm going to put it in the chat. And again, just like all of them, sit down and refine your financial policy. Now, there's two parts to it. You're going to need a patient-facing one and then a team-facing one. Obviously, they're different. How do we talk to patients about money? And then how do we talk to patients? So you want to make sure that both of those are outlined. And what you do is you create more clarity by being able to do that, and then just constantly refine it. So I'm going to put that in the chat, and that's a big piece of this. And again, this is almost like the scheduling thing. You never get this right. You get it pretty close, and then you refine it again and again and again. So that is countermeasure one. Just assess the entire thing. Now, if you struggle with this, you should probably have somebody take a look at it. Dina and Gina on our team, they do assessments all the time, and they find opportunities. I love that word. It's opportunities. Like, it's 92%. There's an opportunity. Your scheduling isn't as good. There's an opportunity. So in this, everything we're sharing with you, these are opportunities to make things better.
Absolutely. Let's
So
go to countermeasure 2.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is you want to assess the AR system. And when you're assessing your AR system, you just want to ask a few questions. Where is my total outstanding AR, and how does that compare to my monthly net collections? Now, again, if you use Dental Intel, like all of our clients do, because if their systems are compatible, we do, just because it's easy for us to be able to see this. You can see the breakdown: 0 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, and 90 plus, and quickly diagnose if we have challenges in act. Now, this is less about finances. This becomes a mindset. When those numbers are all jacked up, it's usually somebody's afraid or hasn't been trained on how to collect money or develop. So just keeping these in the right zones is important. Now, you've heard us say this before too. Once it gets to 90, you're losing exponential value on the dollar. It actually goes downhill. And I would also argue that you're ruining relationships, because people that owe you money don't like you. So if I owe you money for 90 days, I'm not coming back. I'm afraid of your phone call. I don't value what you do. And really, this is on us. So taking a look at this is really important.
Yeah. And I like it. This shows some good financial health. What we see where the majority of AR is in the 0 to 30, because that is natural in terms of the lag time of insurance payment. Any dollar of AR over 30 days is money that should be in your bank account.
Yep.
Okay. So 31 days or more, your odds of you're collecting it are down. Now, that doesn't include orthodontic cases and things like that. I'm talking about the money that's over 31 days that should have been paid. That's how we as doctors need to look at that. Like, that's 65 days old. That was a crown I did 3 months ago. I should have that money. And so if you want to lend money, let's be bankers, but we're dentists, right? And so if you set the financial policy, you educate the patient on what they need, here's how you can pay that off, here's our expectations, and then you follow through on that, your AR will look more like what you see on the screen, with very little 30, 60, 90 days, which is what we want to see.
Yeah, an industry standard, you'll see AR ratios. It's always been, I've been doing this for 30 years. It's always been 1.5. And I would disagree with that. I actually don't like it close to 1.5. That's the average. And that's a good average. It's so funny because Barrett challenges us all the time. Like, who came up with that rule? Well, that rule is like 30 years old. I would say the new marker is 1.0 or less. And as you can see, this practice, we started to work with them. We want it to be way less than that. And I think the lower you can get it, the better. and taking a look at how that all comes out. And again, the data just allows us to be able to diagnose where do we start. And so if you're a dentist, you're like, well, I don't know if I like to talk to my team members. No, this is where it becomes fun. We can talk about what's healthy. Use the word healthy. Don't use money. Like, we got to get this, we got to help get these to all healthy ranges. Don't you think, Barrett?
Yep, 100%. Let's not be average. Let's be way better than average.
Absolutely. So, and if you're struggling with this, if you've never created an airtight, and I do mean airtight accounts receivables system and collection system, we have a tool. It's a lengthy tool. I'll just warn you, it's a lot of pages, but it walks you through all the questions, all the steps, who should do it, what to say, how to say it when it's not working correctly. And I'm going to add that to the feed right now. But what a great opportunity. We're giving you guys, like, some of you don't like to do team meetings. These are 4 team meetings you can do in a row that will make huge impacts on your practice.
And the beauty of, just a quick sidebar on systems and habits. When you do the work to set up this system and then you implement it, it's going to work for you, because every month your administrative team is going to do these 7 steps, for instance, and they're going to reach out to these and they're going to do this. And when they bill insurance, they're going to do this. And instead of like, oh my gosh, our AR is high, let's make a big effort to get the money. Let's not even allow that AR to get high by setting up the right habits and systems from day one, so that your graph looks like the one we looked at, where 0 to 30 has some money out there, but by the time it gets to 32 days, it's mostly gone. That's what this system that you're looking at that will offer to you will do when you set it up, discuss it with your team, and get some buy-in from them.
So well said. And I'll even challenge you that the healthier your AR gets, the healthier your relationships get, the better your dentistry gets, only because what you're ultimately doing is training people how to pay.
Right.
At the time of service when you're doing these procedures. So that is data point number 2. Now, data point number 3 in this particular webinar is case acceptance percentage, probably the most misunderstood metric in all of dentistry. And so anything you would say about case acceptance percentage, Barrett?
Yeah, and I'll go one step higher. Do patients leave your practice tied back to your practice? So, do they leave the hygiene chair with their next hygiene appointment? Do they leave their restorative appointment with the next restorative appointment scheduled? Case acceptance comes in when we deliver a new treatment plan. Does that patient leave with something on the books? I don't have data to prove this, but I would say, let's say you deliver a large comprehensive treatment plan, $20,000. The odds of you reaching the end of that $20,000 treatment plan is exponentially higher if that person leaves with, we're going to start with 1 filling, versus, let me think on it, I'll get back to you. So a lot of this is the art and science of interpersonal communication, of emotional awareness and intelligence, of saying, like, I don't need this person to say, absolutely, doc, here's my credit card, 20 grand, let's go. We don't need them to do that. We need them at minimum to say, I hear you. I'm not quite sure, but I'm at least willing to start with X. Great. Awesome. Because now I know I can give you great experiences. You're going to build trust. And as soon as I give you a couple to the first 2 steps of good experiences, the trust builds, and the patient wants to go faster. And so case acceptance is, of all the treatment we accepted, how many of those patients accepted something? Yeah. And I like it way more than I presented $20,000 on this same day. How much of that $20,000 was accepted? That's not as good a metric in my mind, because not many patients schedule all $20,000 the day that it was presented.
Right. Right. And a couple of things, I'll just piggyback on what Barrett said. I think the important piece is just to track this and get started. We talk about the importance of advanced continuing education, where you go to Pankey, Dawson, Coy, Spear, Sales Study Club. You're going to learn more. You're going to see more. You're going to see how you can help patients more. And as a result, you'll you'll be able to help patients more comprehensively. I really like to stay away from targets on this because you run into other dentists and they go, "Oh, my case acceptance is 100%." I'm like, "Well, that's not helpful to anyone, and that's not even true." But you could start, let's say you start to track these analytics and you're like, "Wow, I'm only at 22%. That's fine. Let's go to 24%. Then let's go to 28%." So we're going to keep track of what we talk about every single month. And this is a great metric to ask for the help of one of your chairside assistants, because if you're like me, you're a wuss. You hate talking about anything because you get in all your head about how many times you talk to this patient about this crown. And you're like, "I don't even want to go there today because I hate conflict and I don't want her to get upset. And she thinks I'm all about the money." I mean, you talk to yourself so poorly in these situations. You can have a great assistant say, "Listen, we're going to do better. We're going to try to help our patients more comprehensively with this." And I'll add one more thing. I think that the only responsibility we have is just to tell the patients the truth every time. Don't worry about what they're going to say. It's like, I just have a commitment to tell my patients the truth every time. And I think if you can set that precedent at the beginning and just say, "Listen," and I'll forever shout out, Bob Margis. I was in his practice. I heard him say this so many times. He says the same thing every day. Like, "It's three things, Mrs. Jones. It's your money, it's your mouth, it's your time. I'm just the referee here. I'm going to tell you what I see. And the cool thing about my practice, you get to make all the decisions." And they go, "He's so nice." So I think it's great just to start somewhere.
Let me put one more layer of go back to that dental intel slide, last slide. So you're going to see two percentages there, right? So at the very bottom right, you see acceptance 39%. That's the dollar percentage. That's valuable, but not as valuable as the acceptance midway up, where it's goal 65, actual 58. So that is 58% of the patients that were presented care accepted something. Now, that's the more important percentage in my mind to get started. With that, though, if you look at the bottom left, is presented dollar value. That's the total amount. So if you're like, "I need to do $100,000 of dentistry a month," but for the last 3 months, you only presented 43,000, it's going to be hard, right? So it's a double whammy of how much am I diagnosing morally and ethically, of course, and presenting each month. And then of those patients, how many are accepting something? And when you can get that presented dollar value at or above your targeted goal, and then you creep your case percentage up, over time, it starts to all work out.
Yeah, 100%. Now, the question becomes, well, what if my case acceptance percentage isn't that great? Well, again, we're going to employ the help of a countermeasure. And countermeasure number one is we're going to do some verbal skills. Let me go ahead here. We're going to just calibrate on verbal skills. I'll say this a million times. If you ever come, like, verbal skills matter. A lot of times when we get practices we coach, getting them organized and getting them to talk the right way has a tremendous impact on patients. It creates value. It creates confidence for them. They go, "Wow, that really worked." I'm like, "Yes, it did." And in all fairness to team members and dentists alike, there's no verbal skills academy that you go to in dentistry. A lot of it is trial by fire. You screw up a lot when you go out in the world. You're like, "Oh my gosh, that was a disaster." And it keeps you from doing it again. It's kind of like, gosh, dating hasn't been going really well for me. So I'm not, I think it's really important that we calibrate on, how we talk consistently with, and again, whether you have 4 team members or 400, we're all saying pretty much the same thing.
You only get good at selling dentistry through some sweaty armpits. You got to get nervous.
Yeah.
You're going to just sweat. You're going to fail. You're going to feel awkward. And that's how we learn to say, "Well, that didn't work," or "that felt weird." And guess what? After time, you find your rhythm. You find the words that sound good in your head, that are authentic, that sincere, that resonate with your patient base. And then you get some confidence. But this is part of that. If you struggle with this, like, celebrate the awkwardness, celebrate the failure, celebrate the sweat and the fear, because that's the only way that we learn to get through this. I sold my practice recently. The dentist that bought my practice, I've been mentoring him. He said, "You're so good at that, at explaining it." I go, "I know, because there was a long time where I wasn't." So those of you that are in that, I don't have it. Just keep at it. Keep
Yeah.
working at it. Celebrate when you totally screw it up and just do it better the next day. Study these words. Say that, say this, not that. There's a ton of verbiage. You're going to get good, but you got to kind of celebrate the failure and keep after it.
Yeah, I'm a CE junkie, and I've heard many great dental speakers say exactly this phrase. Your ability to communicate will determine how far you go. And I've heard it so many times, and it's so true. The better communicators always go farther. They create better, connections. They do more comprehensive dentistry. They do dentistry that lasts. Yes, your hands have to be good. Yes, your dentistry has to be good. And yes, I understand that maybe you might be listening to this going, I'm not a great communicator. Well, don't stay there. You get 10% better, it has a huge impact on your practice. So to your point, Barrett, I mean, a lot of dentists are taking, courses on how to, get tighter with this technical skill. And I think that's all good, but really improving your communication skills, not only just you, but you take a team member who works in the admin part of your practice and you grow and develop them, you're going to go, wow, that has a huge impact on them, our patients, our practice. So we put a handout in here called Say This, Not That. So many things that are said in so many practices. We're like, we just got tired of people saying like, oh my gosh. So it basically has 3 columns. It's what's going to be talked about. One way to consider saying it, and then a third column where you go, our practice is a little bit different. We can calibrate. It's basically a calibration tool. And again, this will probably be a 2 or 3 team meeting exercise, but you can all get aligned on what to say when it comes to these valuable services you provide.
I think what you just said before about communication is the most valuable thing of this webinar. We and you especially, Kirk, know some of the very best clinicians in the world. And I often say this, none of us have ever met the one best clinician in the world. Because there's better chance than not that no one has heard their name because they have not a great bedside manner. They don't know how to talk to people. The person with the best hand skills is probably out there in a failing practice. And so you're absolutely right. The most successful dentists are good clinicians and great communicators. And so if you're a young dentist and you're just killing yourself with clinical CE, good. But at least do an equal amount on improving yourself and interpersonal communications. That will get you a quicker ROI. All the while, you should never stop being a better clinician.
100%. And again, if this gets hard for you, don't try to do it on your own. That's why there's coaches out there that are just trained. I mean, we have 10 coaches. This is all they do every day with practices all over the country. So we're here to help you. Now, there's a second countermeasure to case acceptance percentage is assessing your handoff. And the handoff is there's certain points in your practice where patients come in and they go from one department or one person to the next. And again, just like everything else we've shared, this is something you can't stop at. Patients need to hear some information 7 times, 7 different ways. And it has to be world class. Most of the handoffs we see in dentistry are extremely underwhelming. They hand off a patient, they go, that's a handoff. No, you park them there and you left a little piece of paper and you go, have a great week, and you ran back to your room. That's not a handoff. So I think we can do a lot in here. And talk about the pit stop, Barrett.
Yeah, the pit stop's the granddaddy of handoff, and that is between the clinical team member and your administrative team member up at the front. And that is such a crucial point. I like to say that the patient's experience in your practice, they should always be the responsibility of someone. They walk through the door, they're the responsibility of your patient concierge. They go through the door with your dental assistant, they're the responsibility of your assistant. They are handed off to you, the doctor, in the consultation room. There's a handoff, and then they're yours. You bring them into the operatory. There's someone always handing them off, so the patient feels extremely well taken care of. Now, after the restorative appointment is over or the hygiene appointment is over, that clinical team member brings them to the front, and the pit stop is procedure investment time. Here's what we did. Let's celebrate some good things. Let's talk about what needs to happen and verbalize a reason for return. Here's what we need in investment. Here's what we need in time for the next appointment. It's a 3-person conversation versus you and me talking about the patient here. And what it does is it repeats information that the patient's already heard. That's good. You want to feel redundant because patients need to hear things 7 times, 7 different ways. And it's also selfishly very good for the team because it's ultra clarity. Mrs. Jones had this procedure. She's coming back for this procedure. We're going to need 5 units. And then the front desk person will go over the investment. And so the patient leaves, I like to say, no surprises. I know what happened today. I know when I'm coming back. I know what my financial responsibility will be. I know how long I will be here, and I'm going to leave with the appointment. And so I have 0 surprises. I know exactly what to expect. We're not going to have any financial problems between the two of us, misunderstandings. And so that pit stop is the granddaddy of all handoffs.
Yeah, I'll just pick. There's so many things. Now, that's why we created a tool for this. Just simple rule of thumb, a patient should never see 1 set of eyes. They should always be looking at 4 eyes. 2 eyes of the person they're going to next, and then 2 eyes of the patient. And it should be just like Barrett described, in a triangle. And sometimes, I mean, if any of you have ever been to somewhere like Mayo, the Mayo Clinic does this so well, and they do practice it quite a bit. I've had several family members go there, and you're never in the presence of just one person. You go with one person and another person to meet 2 other people. It just makes you feel like you're very well cared for. And these little touch points make a huge impact. Remember, your practice is built on trust. It's not how fancy your dentistry is. People have to look at you and go, you're my people. These people really get me. And so I put the pit stop in the chat. Please use that, and you guys can refine that as a team. And so give us a couple final takeaways on this, Barrett. Now I've already gotten a few requests. Can we have a recording? Can we have yes, you will all get a recording. I'll put the handouts in BPA, so it'll all be back there. You can ask questions about this later, but give us some final takeaways on this, Barrett.
I hate tracking numbers that I don't know what the purpose is. So I only want to track a number if I know exactly why I'm tracking that number and what the outcome to my practice is when that number gets better. And I say that as a dentist that tracked numbers for many years, worked for a whole year to improve numbers, and then at the end of the year, like, well, I don't really have any more money for improving all those numbers. And the reason is we often track numbers without knowing the whole story. And the whole story is and are the financial gaps. I'd really encourage people to come visit us in August and keep listening because we talk about them all the time. Keep coming back to the webinar. Join us in the BPA. These are 3 key metrics that I think we laid enough out where you could go and improve them and know what they're improving, but they're part of a much bigger story also. And so that's what I'll say. Anytime you ask your team to track a number, anytime you're going to get emotional or have any reaction to any number, first ask why. Why does that number mean what I think it means? Improving it, what is the tangible outcome that I will see or should see? And if we can't answer those questions pretty clearly, then there's more to the story that we need to know. And the story that we're being able to tell doctors and our clients through working through the GAPS scorecard is they have a very clear picture of when I feel that I'm not profitable. 1, I can confirm whether my feeling is accurate. And then 2, I know exactly what to do about it, exactly what numbers to track. And so that's kind of the close that take these numbers and go, but also keep chiming in, keep joining us as we keep telling more of this financial gap story.
Yeah, so well said. And so I really appreciate you guys being here. And a great question from Helen. Can I ask it to you, Barrett?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm struggling with getting clean numbers to determine our net production produced for the day through Eaglesoft, because when the EOBs are entered the same day and fees are adjusted, the changes show as production. Is there a correct way that the fee correction coming from the EOB doesn't impact the net production number for treatment done that day? And should the corrections be put in as an adjustment? So
let me just, I'm quickly reading. That the Eaglesoft EOBs are entered same day and fees are adjusted. The changes show us production. Those are correct way. Yes. And there's a couple people on our team that can answer this, and you're not looking at either of them. There is.
Yes.
So we will get that answer. We're going to post it. I'm going to print that. We're going to post it in Circle. It might be an Eaglesoft. Helen, can you quick answer? Do you use Dental Intel to find that, or are you doing that manually through Eaglesoft? I'll back up and say, I'll say to everyone, if you want a manual. Okay. I want to say to everyone, the way to check if you're doing it right is go to your ledger tomorrow, and the last crown you did, say, what's my crown fee? Let's say it's $1,250. You go to that patient and say, was that the top line number billed? A lot of us think that is happening, and quite often it's not. Okay. And there's different settings in our software to be able to do that. We want that $1,250 to be the top. Then we want to make an insurance adjustment. We'll call it Barrett Straub insurance of whatever your contracted write-off is. And then that remaining portion is split between assignment of benefits from the insurance and the patient. Now, why I don't quite understand why an adjustment would be showing up as production. So we're gonna tease that apart. And Helen, don't be afraid to give Gina on our team a call, and we'll see if we can get an answer to you, or shoot me an email, barrett@actdental.com, and we'll try to tease this apart for you and see if we can make some sense for you.
Yeah. And Helen, great question. And as you can imagine, I've been doing this for 30 years. Barrett's the smart one around here. Like,
Yeah.
It's more complex than ever when it comes to computer systems and processes on all this. And again, our goal is to help you decode this as best we can. And we do have people on our team that know the answers to these questions. We also have members of our community too.
We've got to answer this one last question because it's such a great one. We hear it every day. We build the insurance based. Thank you for sharing this, because this is the ultimate question that we deal with every day. We build the insurance based on the contracted rate and not our office fee rates. The office manager said that it is more work if we bill based on office rates, since we will end up writing it off anyway. What is the opinion on this? We are all humans, and this is a very valid human opinion, right? But we need to bill the office rate. And I'm going to tell you why real quickly. We need to bill the office rate because we need to then, yes. Is it one more step to write off that? Yes. And does it feel a little bulky at first? Yes. Does it become a habit and not take any extra time eventually after a few months? Yes. So we want to build the office rate. I want you to know what percentage of your output you are writing off. Okay. If we were a widget manufacturer and we had 20% of the widgets that came off our line, we had to throw in the garbage, that we would track that and know that that's something we need to improve. It's no different of that production. Without any judgment, what is the percentage that we write off? The only way to track that is by billing the office rate at first. Now, why do we also need to know that? Because your overhead, your business expenses, they are calculated as a percentage of what? Collections. But they're spent as a percentage of your production. Meaning, in order to produce that $1 million, you need 2 assistants, 2 hygienists, 3 administrative team members. And then, so anytime someone says, I have 35% effort gap, I write off 35%. I don't even need to look at their books. I can say, I know your overhead's too high. Because their overhead expense goes to that top line, but then they can only collect down here. No wonder team comp is out of whack. You're not overpaying your people in many cases. Most of the time, it's just you have too many, your profit margin. That's what we talk about in the gaps. It's all about profit margin. And so when your profit margin is really, really narrow, it's really, really hard to get all these percentages to match, what we say in our model and what you read in the article. So I would explain that. that we are writing off. I need to know that, because as a business owner, I need to know that. And I'm going to ask that we do it the cleanest way that tells the whole story is this. And it doesn't, you still are able to say, what's my net production? Great. That's what we need to collect. So it doesn't actually make it harder to track collections. It's like a half a step more on the front end that will become a habit soon after.
Yeah. There's two kinds of hard. I totally agree with everything. The hard is like doing this extra step. The real hard is working for 50% or less. That's even harder. And so this is such a great question, and I'm so grateful you asked it. But if I was going to practice for 3 decades and I just build out the contracted rate, you're going so far into the forest that you're not going to be able to come back. And here's why. Because those rates are going to change, and there's going to be a day where you're going to want to charge your full fee. And those 2 points are going to be so far away. You're going to want to charge $1,500 for a crown, but you're on a race to the bottom where you're billing out $785. And then when you raise your fees, you're going to watch patients go, that's crazy. You just doubled your fee. And you're like, no, that was always my fee. It's just somebody else was in charge of what I could charge. Don't let somebody else be in charge of what you can charge.
And don't let somebody else tell you how to run a business. So let me say this. And it's hard because actually most of dentistry is telling you, Jen, to do it the way that you described. Most of dentistry is saying bill the contracted fee because that's all you can collect. But who's telling you that? One, the insurance company, because they don't want you to know. And number two, the software company coaches, because they want to make your life easy. Neither of them are in your shoes as a small business owner. Okay, so sometimes we have to I'm going to check the advice I'm getting and say, where are they coming from? What are their motivations, even if they're totally valid and come from a good place? But I'm the business owner. I did 8 hours of dentistry yesterday. That was my effort. I need to know what my true output was, and of that output, how much I can collect on. That's just raw, unemotional data that every business owner should expect to know.
Mm-hmm. So well said. So great questions today. We got a couple more things. Thank you guys for showing up. It's so great. Again, let me go back here. Our next webinar will be on the 25th, and that'll be Unlock the Secrets to a Thriving Dental Practice, Mastering Culture and Hiring. And if you're in dentistry right now, this will be your #1 challenge for the rest of your career. I don't think this is going away. 61% of dentists say this is their top challenge. Our goal is to help you decode it. We're going to show you what we're learning, what a lot of the practices we coach are doing, and we're going to give you all the secrets, and you can do what you want with them. So make sure you mark your calendars for that, and you'll get more communication on that. You will get the recordings and the handouts for today. And like we shared at the beginning, I highly encourage you to show up on Friday, August 23rd, where everything we shared in this webinar, we're going to go into great detail, where you can actually break down your own numbers. And I mean, I'll say this too, Barrett, you and I have been talking about this all week. We have some pretty sharp dentists that we coach. I mean, really sharp.
Way smarter than either of us. Yeah.
Way smarter. And so even they are confused with all of this data and how it relates to profitability. And so as we learn every single day, we're going to share with you how to decode this. And think about this. Every adjustment you make in one of these gaps adds $1 more of profit to the bottom of the line. You don't have to take your practice and just turn it like that. You can just tweak it quarter over quarter, and you'll see you're going to feel better. You're going to have more money. You're going to have more margin. You'll feel relaxed. So make sure you check that out, and we will send out a link for that also. And lastly, I'm going to highly encourage you to utilize the golden ticket. Join us. I promise you. You can take all the information. Our next one is is that April? It's the 3rd week of April. And
April 19th and April 26th. There's probably a couple seats left.
Right.
So if you somehow can make it, get on it. Otherwise, you'll apply for this. You'll talk to Gina, and we'd love to have you the next quarter. We do it every 3 months.
Yeah. So great stuff, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks for being
Likewise.
on.
Likewise. I loved it.
Yeah. And thank you
can tell
guys.
we love this stuff. Yeah.
I absolutely love this stuff. So thank you guys for joining. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. And as always, we're here to help you create a better practice and a better life. Join us in the Best Practices Association. And it's an amazing group of people. So thank you guys. Enjoy your day.
Bye, guys.
Have a great rest of your week.